I'm running a little bit late. I want to fix my little light, but I don't know where my remote is. Fit check. I just put this in the dryer to warm it up because it's literally, not literally, it feels like it's freezing in my house. It's not freezing, but it feels that way now, doesn't it? I can never remember how to change this to what I like it to be. I don't want the stars there, that's for damn sure. I hate when I make eye contact with it. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. There we go. That's what I'm fucking talking about. Let's go. Let's go. All right, let me get the TikTok people here. How are we doing? How's everybody feeling out there tonight? Wow, I'm really glad I put a bra on. I almost didn't. 65% battery. That's probably enough. Oh, I forgot. I can't even go live on TikTok because I got banned for hate speech. No, you cannot use Facebook to sign in. Are you fucking insane? Live access suspended. Well, I guess we don't even need the iPad tonight. The housewives coat, period. I was wondering if anyone remembered that or if I just dreamed it. Savannah Life, thank you for subscribing with Prime. I hope that we like this topic tonight. It was like an unexpected banger. I just kind of did it because I couldn't think of anything else, but then as I was making it, I was like, oh, this actually kind of eats, especially the outfits. What hate speech? Exactly, that's what I'm saying. What did I even say? I don't even remember what I said. Probably nothing. I've done nothing wrong, and I will not apologize. But anyway, my cat is joining us tonight. Nice. Hi from Hawaii. I hope you're warm. I'm not. Oh my God. I just ate dinner. It was good, but now I'm really full. That's the only thing, like when I worked in corporate, I would just eat a snack and then I would stream and then I would eat dinner because I went to bed at like midnight. But now I eat dinner before I stream and I feel like I'm like on the stream. You know what I mean? I got my Instagram deleted once because I said I hate men. Oh my God. Why are they trying to silence us? How's the Blackstone? It's good, but right now I haven't used it in like over a week because it's just really cold outside. And it's not that I don't, like I like grilling in the cold, but it's hard to keep the food warm. Like because there's so much cold air around you, it's like hard to have a hot meal in that environment. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I want to move this scotch. You guys, the pink wall is almost done. Do you see that? And I'm going to do like down here and then like y'all can't see, but like this wall over here. We're just going to scoot that over for right now. I'm excited to do. I think that is going to make a big difference, weirdly enough. Maybe I'll get pink curtains. I literally just bought new white curtains. What's the temp where you are? It feels like it's 1. It's like 30. Literally haven't used Twitch on my TV since your last broadcast. That's funny. One of my contacts feels like it's inside out. Welcome to class for all the new YouTube and TikTok babies. Yes. Welcome to class. Also, because I want to reward you all for being on time to class, I have secret lore to drop. I'm starting a new YouTube channel. So I'm going to keep this current YouTube channel with just like my streams, and I started posting my TikToks as YouTube shorts, not because I think it's fun, but because it drives more people to my stream, which is what I want. So yeah. I'm going to start a second YouTube channel that's going to be like very, very, very teacher focused. So for any teachers that follow me, like this is my plan, is the videos that I make at work, because I make videos at work a lot where I make screen recordings that are like 4 or 5 minutes about like how to do stuff. Like I made one about like how to use Google assignments within Canvas, stuff like that. And I was like, I'm already making these. It would not be that much more work to make it and just like log into my Walmart parking lot Gmail and make it from there and then like post it publicly for anyone. Because if I'm posting it on a separate YouTube, then I can still send it to people at work and them not be like, girl, what the hell, what? So yeah, so I'm going to have a second YouTube channel soon. That's coming. I partially tell you guys secrets to hold myself accountable to actually do them. But anyway, tonight we are talking about the history of flight attendants, formerly stewardesses. I'm starting my teacher program soon. This is perfect timing for me. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. It says 61 slides, but lots of them are slideshows of pictures, and lots of them are very, very long. So let's get this freaking party started. So, a German guy named Heinrich Kubis was the world's first flight attendant in 1912. I didn't even think about this. There were flight attendants before airplanes because of blimps. You get what I'm saying? So, like, before we had airplanes, we had blimps. Because I Googled, like, when was the first flight? And then I Googled who was the first flight attendant. And I was like, why is that before? Right? I really didn't think about it. But anyway, he attended to passengers on the Die Lag Zeppelin LZ-10 Schwamp, I think is the accurate pronunciation of that. What exactly are blimps? The thing is, I don't know. I'm going to Google it. This is what I do in class. What are blimps? I hate a useless definition. An airship without an internal structural framework or keel. Fuck off. What does that even mean? So now they're really just used for advertising. There's not that many. All these definitions are terrible. It's basically a giant balloon. How do blimps fly? Let's try that. Wait, so are they? When the blimp takes off, the pilot vents... I just want a straightforward answer. This is why someone asked me, they're like, why do you make the slides? Just like research it live. This is why. This is why we don't do that. What allows blimps to fly? It's basically they're filled with helium, and the pilot is just like producing and scaling back helium to make them fly. But the problem is boneless planes. Stop. They're filled with gas that's lighter than air. Yeah, they're filled with helium. So when they want to go higher, the pilot's like, get some more helium in there. And when they want to go lower, he's like, let some out. But the problem is they're very flammable, I think, is the problem. So it's like this part, the balloon part, is filled with helium, and it's just the tiny bottom part that has people in it. You'd think the whole thing would be full of people, but no. Gas go boom, though. The pilot says that whenever I fly too, for real. Boneless planes are just plain nuggets. Oh, y'all are on one tonight. I'm so glad. Rest in peace, blimps. You would have loved hot air balloons. We're going to talk about the Hindenburg. So anyway, Heinrich Kubis, the first flight attendant, was born in 1888 in Germany, and he worked his way up as a waiter in some of Europe's best hotels, including the Carlton Hotel in London and the Ritz Hotel in Paris, which I think ended up being the Ritz-Carlton, because that's the name of that company, to eventually hold the record as the first flight attendant working on that airship in 1912, like we talked about. So he was super smart. He was a famous server who was like the best of the best, so that's why he had that job. We're not really going to get into his lore that much because I don't really care about this German man from the 1910s, unfortunately. But he does have some interesting lore that we're going to talk about. So, this was like a rich people activity. People were not flying on blimps to go see their grandma. It was like a fancy thing. So the olden days could only transport a merely 20 individuals alongside mail and cargo, and early flyers had to endure terrible turbulence, excessive engine noises, an uncomfy journey, and lots of other problems. So yeah, not a super glamorous thing, but it was a glamorous thing. Rich people, this is like the fire festival of flying. Like, rich people love to be like, oh my god, that was so crazy and difficult. It's like a forced adversity. He was also there when the Hindenburg exploded, and he survived by jumping out a window. Right? This is why I had to include him. Because how the fuck do you like, I didn't know there were any survivors. I just assumed there were no survivors. Like, you look at that picture, everyone's dead. I wouldn't assume people lived. So he literally, the world's first flight attendant, this is why I included him, was on the Hindenburg and jumped. and lived. Right? It said he was close to the ground. See, this is why I don't go up into the air. I knew that y'all were going to be mind blown when I told you that. That sounds fake. It's not. You can't kill me, bitch, I'm God. That's him. Not on the Hindenburg, but that's him. Also, I thought the pen in his front pocket was a vape pen, and I was like, real. But they didn't have vape pens in 1912. I would have bet my life savings that every single one of those people died. He really said, fuck it, we ball. Let me show you all the flag I just bought for my office. Oh my God. You could not have said that with better timing. This is crazy. There's not that many people here tonight, so I'm just kind of like goofing. This is like the day that your teacher forgets to take their Adderall, except for me, that's every day because I don't take anything. Look at this flag I got for my office. Are my words backwards? They shouldn't be. Are you joking me? It's gonna go, y'all won't be able to see it, but it's gonna go right behind my computer. Wheeled out the TV. That is also me every day. Like, this is amazing. I was about to say, let's replace the American flag with this, but then I remembered I'm literally an American history teacher, and like someone would probably be upset at that. So I guess I did just say it just now. Whatever. Isn't it good? Isn't it good? Isn't it good? I love it. That's so baller. It's gonna go like, so this side is the pink wall. That's what y'all will see. And then this is gonna go like up there behind y'all. Oh, this is so great. This is great. Everything's coming together. And y'all can't really see it. I can't turn my computer. It's gonna fall down. My boyfriend got me a little pink couch. Look on my Instagram. I posted the pink couch on Instagram. This is the polar opposite of the Mojo Doja Casa House. This is the polar opposite of that. But anyway, back to this man who jumped out of the Hindenburg. So, slight detour for those who don't know. Oh, I didn't understand what I just wrote. Slight detour for people who don't know about the Hindenburg, because I did not know about the Hindenburg. So he stepped into his new role as chief steward on the Hindenburg. It had 97 passengers and crew and was the largest airship ever built, offering unparalleled speed and comfort and explosions. And it was the first transatlantic, that means across the Atlantic Ocean. That's New York to London, baby, or London to New York, or another East Coast city. But anyway, operating flights between Germany, not London, I lied. Operating flights between Germany and the Americas in the 1930s. As chief steward, he was responsible for overseeing a team of 15 male crew members, including cooks, waiters, and stewards, to ensure service, blah, 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 whatever. And he had the responsibility of conducting checks and removing matches and lighters for safety purposes. Because you can't do that in there. It's helium. It'll explode. And on the fateful day of May 3rd, 1937, the Hindenburg embarked on a journey from Frankfurt to New Jersey, a voyage that was supposed to last for 3 days. So this is kind of like a cruise in the sky, full of death. Not taking a blimp across the ocean. I freak out when regular turbulence happens. So nevertheless, the landing was delayed due to adverse weather conditions. That's the other crazy thing about blimps, is they can just be like, yeah, stay on up there. It's kind of windy down here. Just stay. We'll let you know. And then you just have to keep flying around? Immediately no. Immediately no. This was a male-dominated industry, not for long, which we will discuss when it became female-dominated. But anyway, their landing was delayed, and in a matter of seconds, disaster struck as the airship was engulfed in flames, prompting an explosion that reduced the Hindenburg to ashes. Sidebar here, why did it explode? Because I needed to know, like, how did this just happen? The people that were placed in charge of guarding the site for several reasons, investigators from Germany and the US were gathering information, and a close examination of the records in the aftermath of the crash concluded that leaking gas allowed hydrogen from the airship to mix with oxygen from the outside air. hydrogen, helium, I don't know, gas, I don't fucking know. Hydrogen from the airship to mix with oxygen from the air and spark, possibly from static electricity, ignited the gas that led to the fire that consumed the Hindenburg. So literally it just went boom. Yep. At the time of the explosion, Heinrich was working in the dining room area, and he bravely took charge. He urged passengers and crew members to escape through the windows, and with selfless courage, he assisted numerous passengers to evacuate the doomed airship. A few passengers found themselves trapped within the confines of their cabins, and the incident claimed the life of 13 passengers and 22 crew members, while 23 passengers and 39 crew members miraculously survived the ordeal, which again, I thought everyone died. It was just my assumption that everyone was dead. Against all odds, Cubis escaped the catastrophic event unharmed, living on until he passed in 1979. He lived to be almost 100. So again, I will reiterate, you can't kill me, bitch, I'm God. He lived to be almost 100 years old. Imagine living from 1888 to 1979. You saw World War I. You saw the pandemic of 1918. You saw World War II. You saw the Cold War. You were in the Hindenburg explosion. You were in the Great Depression. You saw the Vietnam War. You saw the Civil Rights Movement. That's insane. First-degree felony, caught my first live stream, happy to be here. We are happy you're here. He saw Farrah Fawcett. No, imagine, like, experiencing the Hindenburg explosion firsthand, and then you know who Cher is. What? I would have clocked out so much earlier. The explosion happened close to the ground. That's why there's footage of it, and people survived. Let's watch the footage. YouTube. Hindenburg. It wasn't a crash. It was an explosion. I'm so tired of the ads. Where aren't you going? Is YouTube blocked while I'm streaming now? That is gonna be such a tough, okay, no, it's working, never mind. I thought it was like, you know how Disney Plus doesn't let you? That man was older than the state of Montana at one point. He saw Great Depression and also the disco.
Atlantic trip of the season. The Hindenburg approaches the mooring mast at Lakehurst. 21 of these sky voyages the world's biggest dirigible has made. So safely, so surely that the experimental service has become a matter of routine. Scarcely 100 feet above ground,
never let your guard
the giant
down.
airship with her framework encasing 7 million cubic feet of inflammable gas is being carefully maneuvered towards her hangar, when suddenly...
How did they live? This is why I can't fly without being heavily medicated. Where is he? Gee, there he is.
The inexplicable, appalling tragedy is a matter of seconds. It seems almost incredible that anyone should escape. Yet 2/3 of those on board survive what is, next to the R-101 disaster, the worst in the history of aviation.
Yeah, no shit, it's the worst in the history of aviation in 1937. No shit. I feel like that's really not saying that much in 1937 to be like, it's the worst history of aviation. Aviation is brand new. That's not much of a history. But anyway, moving on from the Hindenburg. So when did airplanes, like you and I know airplanes, become a thing? Oh my God, I cannot believe we've been here for 20 minutes. We really need to pick up the pace. But Wilbur and Orville Wright had the first successful airplane in 1903. Obviously, by looking at it, ain't no flight attendants on there. So we're going to go ahead and move past this. And then on January 1st, 1914, that is when the first passenger airline took off from St. Petersburg and landed in Tampa, Florida. Of course, the Floridians were like, fuck it, we ball. Let's get in this airplane. So this was a 2-passenger plane. So again, no flight attendants. Sorry for the blimp side quest. It's the worst 5 minutes in the history of aviation so far. After working outside in the cold all day, I wouldn't mind being near a warm explosion. Not me watching this the night before a 5-hour flight. The rest of it's not scary, so just be glad you're on a plane and you're not on a blimp, you know? So, Imperial Airways of the UK started with cabin boys or stewards in the 1920s. Once the planes got a little bigger, that's when they were like, let's bring this on back. I wonder if they asked the German guy, what was his name, Heinrich or something like that? I wonder if he trained them. Probably not. So this is the airplanes of this time of Imperial Airways London. I could not find many pics of inside the plane. This was just one of them. And again, they were called cabin boys. I think cabin boys is like a very like sultry title to give this group of people. Like the cabin boys. What happens in the air stays in the air. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, I don't mean to sexualize them, but it just, like, is giving that aura to me very strongly. And then in the U.S., Stout Airways became the first to employ stewards in 1926, working on Ford Tri-Motor planes between Detroit and Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I'm guessing this is, like, business people that would fly for business reasons between these two places. I couldn't find any pictures inside the planes, but this is what the planes look like. I don't know. It looks like you can hold maybe 10 people on there. They were car people. It might be because it sounds like Cabana Boys. Why is the plane bent like that? GR and Detroit are major car hubs. So maybe they were just trying to flex on the cars. When did the Mile High Club begin? Stop! And then Western Airlines and Pan Am Airlines were the first to employ stewards to serve food, and that was in the 1920s as well. We're not going to go into a ton of the lore of the 1920s because it's literally just exactly what it sounds like with these photos. I don't really have anything beyond that to say. And I realized that I could not find any photos of stewards from the 1920s because objectification was not a part of the job. At first I was like, that's so weird. Why do we have all these photos of women as stewardesses, but there's no photos of when the men were stewardesses? Because clearly they had cameras and they were taking pictures of things. So I was like, that's so weird. And then I motherfucking realized they were only taking pictures of the women for advertising purposes because their body was being objectified. The men could just serve and exist, and their body was not an aspect of the service. Yeah. So that's why there's no motherfucking pictures of them. But good news, losers. History forgot your asses. I may have just talked about you, but we didn't see your names or faces. Except for the German guy, Heinrich, but he lived through the Hindenburg. So that is worth talking about. But you all, nope. Forgotten. Forever. Anyway. Then 10 passenger Fokker aircrafts started having 10 passenger Fokker aircrafts used in the Caribbean for gambling trips between Havana and Key West started having stewards as well during this time. And then those two were out of order, whoopsies. The first female flight attendant ever hired was Ellen Church, hired by United Airlines in 1930. She was a registered nurse, and she also envisioned nurses on aircrafts. I'm so sad I'm late, but I'm happy to be here. Don't even worry. We still have most of everything to talk about. To be a woman is to perform. To be a woman is to perform. Where are the cabin boy fanfics? Are we allowed to ask that question? So yeah, this is Ellen Church, first female flight attendant. She girl bossed the shit out of this industry and took it over. So let's talk about Ellen. I was not planning on going into her lore, but she has like a really interesting story that I just like honestly was kind of inspired by. So I wanted to tell you about it. So she was born in Iowa on a farm in 1904. So when she was born, women could not vote, just for reference. And as a child, she was fascinated by airplanes that flew over her family's farm, like we talked about in the 1920s. Yeah, the planes. At an early age, she decided she would not become a farm wife. Tending to kids and farm animals did not appeal with her. She wanted something with adventure. So after finishing high school, she went to the University of Minnesota and got a nursing degree there in 1926. And then she was able to obtain a job teaching nurses at a hospital in San Francisco. I think that's very impressive for a girl born on a farm in Iowa in 1904 to go out of state to get a nursing degree and then move to San Francisco at 22? Period. So she was working at that hospital for a couple years, and during this time, she took flying lessons and became a licensed pilot. She really said, let me get my ass up there. What are y'all doing? So early passenger planes were crude and not very reliable. Commercial flying was the new frontier, and it was often considered very, very dangerous, and it was an industry that was dominated by men. She was a licensed pilot and nurse, but she knew she was never going to get hired to be a pilot. So in 1930, Ellen Church was in San Francisco and walked into the Boeing Air Transport office, determined to find a way to become a part of this industry. So she pitched the manager with a unique idea. She met with Steve Simpson. He was a manager at the airline, and she said there should be a female nurse to take care of passengers during an airplane trip. She is the Kris Jenner of the 1930s. I'm telling you. Isn't this cool? She invented her job. That's like this topic really popped off in ways that I was not expecting. So she told him a nurse could provide important care during flights for passengers, and they could take care of any passengers that were scared to travel by air. In the 1920s, that meant like giving people quaaludes and shit. So the nursing thing is like it's a little crazier than what you and I probably think of. So this would make it possible for pilots to just focus on the flying and not worry about any kind of emergency. And she believed that the presence of a woman would make people calm down some, because men would be like, oh, if a woman's flying, I'll definitely be okay, because flying was like dangerous and new. So she like really ate. Give him the drugs, Ellen, period. She really walked in and said, give me a job, please. I'm smarter than you. No, really. Like, and she's so right. She's literally so right about that. There's a ton of drugs you're not thinking about. The death trap you're in. The passengers were higher than the kite. She was right. Men do stress me out. So this is Ellen Church. Look at her. Look at her. I'm obsessed with her. I would take a bullet for her and she wouldn't even have to ask. Here's her on the United plane. Oh, incredible. So Simpson felt that Church was onto something, so he passed the idea along to his superiors. Originally, they were like, no, I don't like that, but he was really persistent, and they changed his mind. So during the late spring of 1930s, Church and Simpson started screening applicants for the position of stewardess. And I can't remember if I talk about this later. Okay, so this is this photo right here I wanted to talk about. So she was a certified pilot and was the first stewardess like we talked about, and she went on to serve as the distinction of a captain in the Army Nurses Corps during World War II. I think that Ellen Church is just so fucking inspiring. Like, this bitch was born on a farm in Iowa in 1904. She got a nursing degree, moved to California, nursed through the Great Depression, invented the position of flight attendant, and then went on to be a captain in the Army Nurse Corps. Bad bitch. Bad bitch. I needed to tell y'all about Ellen Church. I'm going to tell my class about her. I don't care that's not in the curriculum. This is important. But isn't that cool? I just thought she was so fun and unique and inspiring. But anyway, let's get on to the rest of the flight attendants. So, now flying is a women's game as well. Stewardesses are beginning to be hired. So, unfortunately, things did not go very well from the beginning. No stewardess was allowed to weigh more than 115 pounds, and they were not allowed to be taller than 5'4". They could not be older than 25, and they had to all be nurses. So, we were close. I really wanted you all to experience the absolute punch to the gut that I did when I read all about the inspiring story of Ellen Church and then saw what United Airlines did. Or not United, it was Boeing, sorry. We were close. I'm like 0 for 5. I'm not taller than 5'4". Damn, I am older than 25 now. All right, I got 1. I'm rocking with 1. Anybody here got 2? Anybody here got 2? No, I don't think Ellen came up with these requirements. I think this was all Boeing. I'm going to be honest with you. Emotional whiplash. I'm going to leave it to men to ruin a great thing. I'm 5'1" and 120. I'm in the healthy BMI range for reference. Okay. I'm short and under 25. You got 2? No to all 3. But I'm too fat and not a nurse. The nurse is what's getting most of us. But anyway, so church was one of the 8 that was chosen, and when the trial period was over, it was considered a huge success. The airline hired more women to be stewardess, and Boeing eventually merged with 2 small companies, and this business group eventually formed United Airlines. And now Boeing is like a plane manufacturing company. They're in trouble now. But United was the OG to hire Miss Ellen Church back when they went by a different name. Short nurse, but old and thick. So, in the United States, I dropped the thing I was playing with. In the United States, this is one of the few jobs that allowed women to have it. So even though it was like really fucking oppressive, it was one of the few options out there. And one of the only ones where you got to leave like your little small town. So that's cool. This and the fact that there's not many women for jobs, plus it's the Great Depression, tons of people applied. 2,000 women applied for only 43 positions being offered by Transcontinental and Western Airlines in December of 1935, and female flight attendants started to rapidly replace male ones, and by 1936 they had taken over the role. So literally within a couple years it did like a complete 180 from being just men to just women. They were selected not just for their knowledge, but for their physical characteristics. Let's go ahead and read one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen, a 1936 New York Times article describing these requirements. The girls who qualify for hostesses must be petite, weigh 100 to 118 pounds, 5 feet to 5 feet 4 inches, age 20 to 26. Add to the rigid physical examination... Add to that the rigid physical examination each must undergo 4 times every year, and you are assured of bloom that goes with perfect health. Ew. This is older, so that's not what I wanted to read. I should have put that later. But anyway, that's the vibe of flying of the 1930s. So let's look at some pictures from this era. In the 1920s, planes shook very loudly and were unpressurized. So air travel was often slower than train travel and only happened during the day. Here are some of the air hostesses in 1939. Here they are serving. Would you look at that? There she is, got the drink. I'm loving the pantsuit moment. Imagine getting on a plane in the 1930s. Like, planes are still new. Oh, we're opening it to 118 pounds. How inclusive. The Smithsonian Air and Space Museum has these requirements in the world's most unflattering mirrors next to them. That is evil. That is absolutely evil. This is already such a great stream for pictures. Oh, there's a lot of good pictures in this one. So here's some more stewardesses from the 1930s, very much on their like pantsuit, or not pantsuit, but like little like businessy pencil skirt vibe. And then this is 1936, the first transoceanic flights. They're dining. This is a man though. I guess only men can cross the ocean. And then here's another Pan Am flight. It looks very glamorous. I'm kind of living for it. And then flight attendant serves coffee and sandwiches aboard an American Airlines flight around 1935. Tell me why it looks more comfortable than it does now. Interesting. So, flying was extremely expensive. Only business travelers and the wealthy could afford to fly. A coast-to-coast round trip was $260, which today would be almost $6,000. So it costs like $6,000 to fly from like California to New York round trip. That's a lot. That really is a lot. But I guess that's how much it would be for like first class on like a good airline now. So the headlights question is so real. How do planes see at night? I think they don't. I don't know. I have no idea. Despite the expense and the discomfort, each year commercial aviation attracted thousands of new passengers willing to sample the advantages and adventure, and the industry expanded very rapidly. It went from 6,000 passengers in 1929 to more than 450,000 by 1934 and 1.2 million by 1938. So it was very much the trend, but still only a tiny fraction of the traveling public flew. Most people had never been on a plane. And like we said, they had to be nurses, they had to be skinny, they had to be young, yada, yada, yada. And they made between $100 to $120 a month. In today's money, that is about $2,300. This was actually much better than I anticipated, because think about how little money women made during the 1930s. So to be making what in today's terms would be $2,000 a month, that's not bad. Especially before the housing crisis. You know what I mean? The numbers questions are going to mess me up at the end. I tried not to do too many because I know you guys don't like those. Did they take like 16-year-olds working? No. You can see this one says 21 to 26. The other job posting we read from the 30s said 20 to 25. Because at this point, they still had to be nurses. You had to be a nurse. So they really couldn't take young women and teenage girls, because that's more than flight attendants make today, damn. Little less than me and I'm a teacher. More than me and I work for the government. Exactly. It's not a bad salary at all, especially for a woman in the 1930s. So they took away the nurse requirement in the 1940s. And then once World War II happened, they were like, let's get those nurses to the motherfucking war. Like, we can't have y'all up in these fucking, like, commercial airlines flights serving sandwiches. That's ridiculous. Get your ass to war. So, like so many things, World War II changed that. And just for context, World War II was from 1939 to 1945. So kind of makes sense that that's when they started dropping the whole nurse requirement. Obviously, people were not really into flying around the world during a super terrible war. So flying was not all the rage of the 1940s, because people were, you know, getting shot down and there were explosions happening everywhere, and the entire world was fighting each other. So kind of for funsies, travel took a little bit of a backseat for a couple years. But here is some info about the vibes. By the end of the 1930s and into the 40s, the responsibility of female flight attendants grew marginally. They cleaned, they bolted down seats, they restrained passengers from tossing garbage out the windows. That's hilarious. Like, have some fucking decorum. You're tossing garbage out of a plane window? Because keep in mind, they weren't all pressurized. They couldn't go as high. So I guess people would just be like, that could fall on someone. Jesus Christ. Does your outfit match with the stream tonight? No, I'm just cold. And then where was I? And they even helped fuel the planes. And then they started getting a little funkier with the uniforms, which we will talk about. In 1945, they also founded the present-day Association of Flight Attendants Union, originally known as the Airline Stewardess Association. So flight attendants are very, very, very unionized. So here's some pictures from the 1940s. This is just a picture of a plane from a propaganda film, but I just wanted you to see what the plane looked like. Here's passengers watching an airplane in 1941. I told y'all people were not as into flying. Here's passengers on the plane from DC to Los Angeles. Here's her with the bread. Loading food onto a United Airlines flight. And then here is an air hostess at work in 1948. So you can see things are getting a little bigger. Got the trays, got the moment, got the coffee, got everything going on. Everything happens so much. This is before anti-littering campaigns of the 1970s. Also true. And then this is in the late 40s. Passengers are playing cards on the airplane. Like, tell me why this literally looks like a living room. Like, they have so much space. What's going on? So 1950s, more and more airlines added clauses to the contracts for flight attendants that grew into sophistication and glamour. So women were typically grounded, meaning like you're done flying, between the ages of 32 and 35, while airlines employed male flight attendants also be no older than 32, 35 at the time of the hire. So it was harder for women. They were getting grounded, and men, they had the age requirement, but they didn't ground them. It was just like, we won't hire you if you're old, but we're not going to fire you for being old. But women, they were like, you're old, goodbye. And Barry specifically cites Northwest and TWA as examples. In 1956, flight attendants were grounded at the age of 32, and in 1957, it was raised slightly to 35, and male flight attendants were allowed to fly until they reached their 60s. Okay. Other newsworthy event of the decade, TWA dropped its no marriage rule. So now it's like, you don't have to be single. You couldn't have a husband. He'll probably hate you for being gone all the time because it's the 1950s, but you can have him. But other airlines largely continued to require that female flight attendants be single, and seasonal uniforms started to rise in popularity, especially in the Aloha flight attendants when they debuted the concept of in-flight entertainment, where the flight attendants on the Aloha flights would sing and hula dance and play the ukulele, which I could not find any evidence of. But yeah. Is that where grounding comes from? I have no idea. Average United stewardess, age 23, weight 117, height 5'5". This is the 50s. The fact that a child was allowed in the smoking section is wild. Bring back freedom. I'm in the Mile High Five Club. So in the 1950s are considered the golden age of traveling. Passengers would dress up a lot. It was like a glamour thing to do, and they had fancy in-flight meals like prime rib and lobster. Here they are in the lay-down seats. Here's another picture of flying in the 1950s. You can see literally everyone is wearing a suit. They have like couches. You could smoke on the plane. I don't know why they stopped doing this. Here's the flight attendant. That's who we care about. This lady looks like a bitch. This lady kind of shading her. Also, this salad is like giving 1950s. Look at the peas. And what is that a roll? I don't know what that is. Stream idea, how governors got the government to ban smoking in public places. Interesting. Lobster. We barely get Biscoff cookies now. Now they're like, would you like a cookie? And then once you bite it, they're like, that'll be $30. Thank you so much. The couches look comfy, but also seem super unsafe. Here is them giving coffee to a small child, you know, back when people could do whatever they wanted in the 50s. We got some fruit. These men just look like they're about to commit a crime. Look at the body language in this photo. Oh my God, this is so telling. I don't like this. I love when you criticize the pictures. She looks like a bitch and the salad looks like shit. Never drink the coffee on airplanes. I know people say not to do that, but I don't know why. I know it's gross. How do they keep the food fresh on a plane? They don't. Simple answer. Again, more pics. They're kind of eating. I don't know. Look at them. Little outfits. I like it. So, also, side note, there was a beauty pageant for flight attendants in 1956 called Miss Skyway. We were going to watch the clip, but it's really short and has no sound, so I just took a screenshot of it so that you could see. That's who won. Her name was Muffet Webb. Muffet Webb is not a name I would imagine for a pageant winner, but she did win, so I guess that's my own bias talking. So let's talk about money. Despite being known as the golden age of travel, flying in the 50s was extremely expensive. A one-way flight to Europe could cost more than $3,000 in today's money. Passengers got what they paid for, though. Flying was very glamorous. Booze was served in glass. They had roast beef, lobster, prime rib. It was very, very fancy. I could not find how much they paid flight attendants. I guess no one wrote it down. It was expensive as shit, but no one was paying flight attendants. So, Real Stewardess recalls her 1950s career. This is a lady who was watching that show Pan Am. If anyone watched that, it's like about stewardesses, and she has a lot of memories of being a flight attendant in that era. So this is just kind of like her talking about that. I figured we'd kind of skim through this. So when I was flying, the rules and requirements for the job were quite strict. And yes, it's true. All stewardesses were required to wear girdles. Maybe on Pan American Airlines, as depicted on the show, fannies were patted for a girdle check, but no one I ever worked with gave me a pat down. The flights were monitored by a chief stewardess who ran a checklist and observation of our dress and work habits. It was an evaluation procedure most of us dreaded. Service and appearance were the two main objectives of the review. If the uniform appeared smooth over the posterior, it meant the The flight attendant was wearing the required girdle. Our uniforms were fitted by a tailor and consisted of a skirt, blouse, a jacket, and navy blue high-heeled shoes and a soldier purse of our own choosing. No slacks were to be worn by women in the 1950s. Oh, sidebar. You shouldn't drink the coffee or tea on a plane since the water comes from the plane's water tanks. It's usually super unclean. Interesting. Girdle check. Yeah, y'all didn't know? Let me see if I can find this clip from Pan Am. Pan Am show girdle. It's a full episode. It's not going to let me watch this. Pause. Oh, will it? Why is my computer being so weird today? I want to find this clip of this show. Uniform check. It was a good show. Let me watch this. Girdle check. They're just like my mom before my 8th grade dance. Stop. Damn, is it really gonna let me watch this entire thing? Alright, Pan Am, if you want to watch that. Hi, Barbies. But yeah, that's what they're talking about, the girdle check in this lady's article. Okay. So she said no slacks were to be worn by women in the 1950s. There were summer and winter outfits and a uniform overcoat and raincoat. I still have my old navy blue London Fog raincoat that I keep at my lake house. It has my maiden name embroidered in the inside lining. Maybe I could do a commercial on the endurance of that brand, which I thought was a really funny fucking tangent for her to go on. This is just kind of about her uniform, blah, 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 how she hated wearing it when it was hot outside. She said our perky little hats were never to be taken off and our hair had to be a length that never touched our collars. And woe to the girl whose weight exceeded 132 pounds. And she said most airlines at that time had a mandatory retirement rule that you could not work after your 32nd birthday. Marriage also meant retirement. I flew with a few pilots who seemed to be a lot older than I. Most were married, but none looked as young as the actors on Pan Am, like we just watched. And she said my life could not have been a TV incident. She said, sure, there were incidents such as my roommate, who was declared a person non grata in Havana. A person non grata means the government is like, we don't accept you. You cannot come here. So her roommate was declared person non grata in Havana because she made a comment to the station agent about the worth of the currency. And Fidel Castro had just come into power. So he like fucking deemed her unlikable, I guess. And then apparently on one of this lady's trips, again, this is in the 1950s, like, would love to take this woman to coffee. On one of my trips, a man boarded with a briefcase full of diamonds and discovered after he had deplaned that someone had switched identical briefcases with him. Instead of a briefcase full of $200,000 worth of diamonds, he had a briefcase stuffed with newspapers. The FBI was called in, but she doesn't know if the thief was ever caught. And she said that one of the airplanes being flown at that time was an unpressurized Martin 200 that had dropped stairs down at the rear of the plane for loading passengers. And a passenger boarded in Dallas smoking a cigarette, and the stewardess told him to put the cigarette out. And smoking was allowed once the plane was in the air. They could smoke, but I guess like while they were taking off, they couldn't. So I guess the smoking has always been like a touch and go thing. And she said when she worked, stewardess took names on a seating chart, hung up coats, passed out magazines, served meals, and chatted with passengers and had to call them by name. She flew a couple of famous people before, and she said she hung up her uniforms when she got married in 1957, and she still has her wings in her jewelry box. She said, unlike today, flying in the 50s was glamorous and an exciting job. It gave me the opportunity to travel and meet people. Most of all, it was fun. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. We're in the 1950s, but it still sounds awful. Smoking is only permitted at discrete elevations. What would happen if you took ghost equipment on a plane? I have no idea, but now I kind of want to try. So speaking of the 1950s, let's talk about racism. So plane cabins were integrated. They did have black passengers. But keep in mind, it's the 1950s, and flying's expensive as shit. So really, the only black passengers would have been celebrities. Because think about the 1950s, and, like, segregation existed. So it's not like you have, like, the black CEO of Macy's flying. You get what I'm saying? So, like, they were technically integrated, but I think it would be a rarity to have a black person on a plane at that time, even though it was technically allowed. So plane cabins were integrated. Most airports were segregated. Not really sure how that fucking works. That seems like a logistical nightmare. I don't understand that at all. And to keep in mind, like I said, really it was the 1950s, so racism was doing a number. They didn't have to manually segregate. Inequality was doing it for them. So Ruth Carroll Taylor was the first African-American flight attendant in the United States. She was hired December 1957, and then in February, she was the first African-American flight attendant on Mohawk Airlines from Ithaca, New York, and it again is the first time a position had been held by an African American. This was before TSA. You could just pull up and hop on a plane. Yeah, exactly. Not exactly a lot of time to build any wealth. Yeah, very true. So this is some pictures of her. Look at her in her moment. So she was let go because of the marriage ban. So she only worked there for 6 months. Boo! Boo! We're throwing tomatoes. Boo! My water is good today. It's really hitting. So then, Patricia Banks Edmondson became the first black flight attendant with Capital Airlines because she filed a legal complaint resulting in the airline being required to hire her. So she said, I'll sue your ass. I will sue your ass. And she got hired. So, look at her. Isn't she pretty? Look at that uniform. So let's talk about flying in the 1960s. Flying became much more common. It was like a bougie thing to do. You could also fly without any form of ID. This is insane to me. Any form of ID? Come on, welcome. This meant you could just show up at the airport half an hour before departure and just walk straight up to the gate. Dope. That's really cool. And loved ones could walk you to the gate without a ticket. You didn't even have to be a ticketed passenger. You could just walk on there. And given that airlines were not allowed to set their own fares, flight attendants became a valuable marketing tool to one-up the competition. The airline industry used to be very heavily regulated. It is not anymore. We're not really going to get into that because that could be a stream on its own. But at this time, it was very heavily regulated. They could not set their own prices. So having cute flight attendants was a good way to win business. So for this brief fleeting moment, airline fashion actually leapt to the forefront of fashion itself. It was kind of a miraculous thing because they all really sort of created this dramatic break between the two periods, which is to say pre-65 and post-65. What happened is it freed everyone else up to a more imaginative direction. So it's really that sort of biggest shift in terms of uniforms in the mid-1960s. Then everything kind of went over the top. All kinds of social behaviors were swirling around, and lots of them were directly reflected in these uniforms. And in 1967, TWA, which was like the major airline that we've talked about a couple times, accepted less than 3% of applicants. They had a lower acceptance rate than Harvard. Isn't that crazy? This was like, even though it kind of sounds like it sucks super bad, it was like the job of the time. If you love this job and lose it, I feel like nothing could replace it. No, it absolutely could not. So here is the copy from a radio ad from the summer of 1969. Right now, PSA, the airline that is famous for its stewardesses is looking for girls. Yes, girls to fill a cute orange mini uniform. Girls who smile and mean it. Girls who give other people a lift. Now, if you're single, 18 and a half to 26 years old, 5'1" to 5'9" and 105 to 135 pounds and have a high school diploma or better, come in for an interview at the Los Angeles International Airport Stewardesses Department Tuesday or Thursday. PSA is an equal opportunity employer. How are you going to say PSA is an equal opportunity employer in the same breath that you said single 18.5 to 26, 5'1" to 5'9", 105 to 135 pounds? Any race, though. Any race. As long as you're a skinny, young, hot woman, we don't care what the color of your skin is. It reads like an ad for prostitution. What the fuck is an equal opportunity in the 1960s? I think because this is after the Civil Rights Act had passed, so they meant like they would hire people of color, but to say that in the same sentence, again, a fat old man wrote that. So, this is literally disgusting. TWA introduces foreign accent flights inside the U.S., announcing the end of routine air travel. Now when you fly nonstop from New York or Chicago to California or back, you can fly one of our foreign accents flights. Come in 4 styles with hostesses to match: Italian, French, Old English, and a Manhattan penthouse. All hostesses should look like hostesses, right? You'll find a new atmosphere throughout the plane. First class and coach, foreign music, foreign magazines and newspapers, foreign touches all around, foreign and the best in foreign cuisine. Yes, you can still enjoy a steak to order. That's a TWA specialty. All in all, TWA... Y'all are screaming. All in all, TWA's new foreign accents flights bring you the best the world has to offer. And if you're bored with routine flying, we think you're ready for it. Call us or Mr. Information, your travel agent. He knows all about it. P.S. Get ready, Philadelphia, Washington, Baltimore, and Boston. Foreign accents flights coming up. A steak to order in the air. This feels like Get Out. Ah, yes, the foreign experience. Manhattan. I'm sorry, can you imagine cooking steak on a plane? It's so funny. So, there's one ad. Here's another horrifying ad. The glamorous life of a stewardess. I'm sorry, I can't read all of these. This is getting excessive. I'm not reading that one. So, airlines trained women employees to be future wives to male travelers. Now that's what the other old maid. That's what the other United Airlines stewardess call her, because she's been flying for almost 3 years now. The average tenure of a stewardess is only 21 months before she gets married. But she's not worried. How many girls do you know who can serve cocktails and dinner for 35 without losing their composure, and who smile the whole time like they mean it? They do. Not too many, right? That's part of, I literally could not get through this. That's part of the reason why 1 of every 30 girls who apply for stewardesses school becomes a United stewardess. But still, since United invented stewardesses back in the 1930, we've trained over 15,000 smiling reasons to fly the friendly skies. Maybe that's why more people fly United than any other airline. Everyone gets warmth, friendliness, and extra care, and someone may get a wife. Okay. For sure. I think the biggest thing that I'm taking away from this is that ads used to be so long, and that the American literacy rate is really dropping at a dramatic pace. This feels racially charged. I don't think I can read this. Stewardess Lancey Lee is an artist. When she's not flying, she's painting and writing poems on bamboo, or studying Chinese abstract, or teaching children how to draw. Be serious. Someone may get a wife. Can we please do a stream on old unhinged ads? No, stop. I'm not reading the rest of that. Women flight attendants belong to the airline, and we're simply a part of the product. A beautiful French hostess with a beautiful French accent is a beautiful French hostess with a beautiful French accent. And literally her face isn't even in it. Beautiful French girls alone do not fly Air France. I can't do this. It's literally so gross. I hate this one. This is the worst one. Come back soon. We hope you had a pleasant flight. We tried to make it so. It arrived on time. You ate well. You went to sleep after dinner. Why not? You work hard. And when the flight landed, the stewardess smiled goodbye like she really meant it. She does. She doesn't. She even straightened your boutonniere. You get this kind of extra care every time you fly with us. Come back soon. I'm not having a good time anymore. Why do those men want to be treated like babies? That's the $1 million question. Is this 1950s porn? Worse. It's 1950s advertising. So, sexism is literally disgusting. Like, women in the workplace deserve so much more. That was actually so fucking horrifying. I'm really glad we read it, but that's actually so horrifying. So let's talk about fashion, because that's more interesting. So here is some of the fashion of the 1960s for the flight attendants, because they may have been getting objectified, but they were also serving. They expected them to be sexy and then made them wear those hats. So it was less glamorous than previous decades, but still, they got a fair amount of room up in there. So literally look at the girlies. Look at them. The shoes, the outfit. She's sitting in the plane. The legs. Like, okay, legs. I see they upped it to 5'9". Here is PSA, Pacific Southwest Airlines, which ended up just being Southwest eventually. They literally look so fucking cute. Like, I'm so sorry about the sexism, but they literally look so cute. The way I can imagine a horrible man complaining about a woman not smiling at him on a plane. What's 4 plus 4? 8. 8. Here's another great one. I also really like these. And it's giving warm. Look at the shoes. Seem very sensible. Look at them. Literally look at them. Like, I'm sorry. This looks like a Vogue photo shoot. This literally looks like a Vogue photo shoot. I hope they at least had fun in taking these dope-ass photos. I feel like they did. Because, like, there's no men around. They look happy. I feel like they would have a camaraderie with each other. That's what I'm choosing to believe. A guy at work complained to HR that I never smiled at him, and I didn't even look at him for the next few years. So apparently this bubble on their face was like a fashion uniform thing, even though they can definitely breathe without it. It was like a 1960s fashion flight attendant thing, I guess. So here's them. Look at them. Look at them. They look so cute. Their outfits. These are really serving as well. The belt feels very functional to me. I like that the belt kind of looks like a seatbelt, but it's like not obnoxious. Like, so many aspects of their job suck, but they all look hot AF. Yeah, I mean, they only hired you if you looked hot, so. Literally, look at the American Air flight attendants. The plaid, this is so cute. The job may suck, but the outfits are eating. They really are. I love this. Look at them here. Oh my God, they look so cute. They all have to be skinny and unmarried, but they really look great. Wow. Incredible. So, stewardesses working for Southwest Airlines of Texas wear hot pants and leather boots in 1972, and the airline's motto was "Sex sells seats." Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And they had drinks on board like Passion Punch and Love Potion. So it's very much giving... I just burped. Sorry about that. It's very much giving Gentlemen's Club in the Sky, but they look phenomenal. They look phenomenal. And now they make us fight each other for one. The shorts. Like, oh my God. The way it's courtesy of Southwest Airlines. Look how good she looks. This looks so fun. I bet it wasn't fun, but it looks it. It really is Hooters. It really is Hooters. I can't imagine the bro high fives when they came up with that slogan. No, seriously. I would give anything to be in that meeting. I would just start screaming. They didn't beat around the bush like companies these days. I do like that they just said it. I respect a company more for being like, we are selling sex. These women are here for what they look like, than companies that try and do it in a sneaky way. Like, at least you're being honest. I'll give you that. Great outfits. I love the boots. Cannot explain how much I love the boots. More fashion. We love. Look at this. Are you kidding me? Look at the bags. Look at the circle bag. More Southwest. I love these little like pantsuits with the stripes. I love the shorts and the boots. That is really a look. It's really Barbie. Look at them. I'm guessing she has on like tights or something, or just like the worst spray tan of all time. This is another great pick. I love the pink on pink. Very, very cute. We do not respect our employees. Makes me trust you more than we're like a family here. Because at least you're honest. No, exactly. It's like if they're like, this woman is being objectified and we're paying her for it. I'm like, at least you're transparent. At least you're honest. Why are clothes so stupid and awful now compared to this? No, literally. Sending this in for what I want to go as for a photo shoot. No, literally. I'm doing new headshots and I'm going to just bring this photo as inspiration. This is what I want. Make it happen. Like, come on. She looks great. She probably had to pose for that photo against her will, but she looks great. This looks like AI. I don't like that. Me trying to convince myself that I am a feminist and I do not want to wear the Southwest hot pants. I forgot I put this in here. I'm really proud of this meme for this because it's absolutely perfect. Speaking of AI. They did what they had to do and they left no crumbs. They ate. They really did eat. Unironically fast fashion. Literally a stream full of reference pics. I love a pic stream. They look so good. They really, really do. So, what's flying like in the 1970s? Security screenings did not become mandatory. Hey, you can be a feminist and wear them because you want to wear them. How much? Someone find the Southwest uniform on eBay. I'll pay anything. I'm a medium. But in that times, I'm probably like a triple XL. Definitely not a medium, according to the Southwest flight attendant weight standard. Definitely a triple XL to that. So, security screenings did not become mandatory until the 1973, according to the Boston Globe. And then the jumbo jet opened to the skies in 1970, allowing airlines to be able to fly very large numbers of passengers. This is why tickets got a lot cheaper, but there was still plenty of legroom, and it was still like very service, very like 5-star. And then around 1970 to 74, American Airlines also featured a piano lounge. What the fuck? Featured a piano lounge towards the rear of the plane. Oh, also... Oh, never mind. It'll come up later. I thought I skipped something that's in the game, but I didn't. I just mixed up the years. Just kidding. Ignore me. So, in 1968, federal courts struck down the rules forbidding the marriage and age requirements, and this momentum continued into the 1970s. Under pressure, rules against flight attendants being pregnant were also withdrawn by most airlines. And most notably, in a landmark 1971 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that airlines could not discriminate against hiring men after Celio Diaz Jr. of Miami claimed his 2 applications were rejected on the basis of gender. So now that we're in kind of like the women's rights, civil rights era, they're like, hey, maybe we should change some of these really, really, really offensive laws, or not laws, but policies around flight attendancy. Southwest Airlines were still in the hot pants, though, and the 1971 campaign that read, "I'm Cheryl, fly me," outraged people, but apparently they saw a 23% bump in passenger traffic as a result. So, the "I'm Cheryl, fly me," did I put this in here? Yeah, we'll do this first. So the "I'm Cheryl, fly me," basically it was different ads, and it would be like, "I'm Cheryl, I'm Megan." Like, it had different women, and it was like, it literally feels like a sex ad, but it's for flying. So "I'm Cheryl, fly me. You think I'm another pretty face? I'm not. I'm a fresh attitude towards air travel, a bright look on the outside, a personal way of thinking on the inside." Back to the old days when airline business, everyone seemed to think airlines were pretty much alike. A lot of them were, so I decided to change a few minds. Part of the challenge was to come out and tell you who we are, why we're special, and why we're even better. Here's who we are. We're Cheryl, me, and Linda, and Margie, and Laura, and Joe. A lot of people you never see behind the scenes. Like Bob and Tommy, Ron and Lee. We're not just pretty faces either. Here's what we're doing and why we're special. We're helping people, hopefully you, go places like Florida, California, New York, and Europe. Quickly, comfortably, conveniently, and on great airplanes like the 747. And starting this winter, our spanking new DC-10, and we're helping people have fun doing it too. The way we figure, the more people like you, the more people like us. It's that simple. So we're not just a bunch of people, we're an airline. And you can call us by our first name. National. Fly Cheryl, fly National. I don't really get it, but okay. Offensive, yes, but advertising executives put their foot in this campaign because this is unforgettable. How of the rest of the ads not as bad, but this one is. That's what I'm saying. Like, we've read a lot of really terrible things. And this was in 1971. The other ones we read were from the 1950s and 60s, so I don't see why everyone's all mad now. I guess it is like the women's liberation movement got a lot of steam in like 68, 69, 70. So I bet that's who was behind this, who was like the ones up in arms, which is a really valid point because it is super weird of an ad. Sorry, the water is hitting. You're also extremely right about this being so wordy before, right? They would never have an ad with this many words. Here's the Delta Airlines girlies in the 60s. They're kind of eating as well. I like the color scheme that they have here. American Airlines, like the boots, the fur hats, the jackets, the skirts. I love it. They literally look so good. I think it's because now they have an omni-channel on marketing, but back then there was less places to be seen. Maybe. And then Southwest gave them long pants. These men look exactly like what I expect Southwest passengers of the 1970s to look like. That's exactly what I think they look like. Outfit is absolutely eating. I love that they let her cover more of her skin. That's probably great for her. And British Airways went the more elegant way. They had trench coats and pinstripes and classic pumps. This is their 1970s look. Oh, Southwest. Love with no strings attached. How were people more mad about the Cheryl ad than this one? That's what I'm not getting. That's really not adding up for me. We already looked at this picture, but I just think it looks like they're having fun. Same with this. We already saw that one too. Sorry about that. Couple repeats. So we're kind of inching towards equality. Like we said, there have been a couple laws passed in the 60s about this. The U.S. Equal Opportunity Employment Commission's first complaint were female flight attendants complaining of age discrimination, weight requirements, and bans on marriage. And in 1968, I keep burping, I'm so sorry. The EEOC declared age restrictions to be illegal sex discrimination under Title, what is that? I'm bad at Roman numerals. Under the Civil Rights Act. Also in 1968, they ruled that sex was not a bona fide occupational requirement to be a flight attendant, and the restriction of hiring women was lifted at all airlines because of that course Diaz versus Pan Am, like we talked about. And then the Airline Deregulation Act was passed in 1978. The Airline Deregulation Act, who the fuck voted for that? If that came across today, like what? Title VII. Thank you. I was going to say Title IX, but that was wrong. So, the Airline Deregulation Act and the no marriage rule was eliminated throughout the airline industry by the 80s, which the last broad categorical discrimination was weight restrictions, which was relaxed in the 90s through litigation and through negotiation. And airlines still have vision and height requirements, but that is a part of the medical evaluation to ensure that you are able to do all the safety procedures. I will grant that you should have to have some kind of physical examination to verify that you will be able to evacuate an airplane properly. I can agree with that. So, in the 1980s, you could smoke cigarettes on the plane, meals were included, and you could check as many bags as you want. Imagine the glory of just getting on with like 9 carry-ons. Absolutely incredible. And commercial flying saw some fun arrangements in the 1980s. What is now United Airlines tested out a pub configuration where they had literally a bar with alcohol and circle tables surrounded by swivel chairs. I want to try and find a picture of this. 1980s United pub airplane. Oopsies. found a picture. Hold on. This is insane. It's a literal bar in the airplane. I'm scared. I feel like I have no concept of how big these planes were. Okay, but a couple-hour flight in a pub sounds lit. I'm not even joking. Like, if I got on a plane and it was like this, I would be like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. I just think it's crazy that they did this. Like, from, like, a safety perspective, this is insane. But from a fun perspective, I'm very into it. They could have full-on bars, but now I can't even have a full can of pop. Astounding. They hate us. So, 1980s, they have a bar in the plane. That is in the game. And passengers could also make a visit to the cockpit. That's when they would give kids the little wings. Was big in the 1980s. And flight attendants were still younger than the average overall workforce, but this began to shift. It was still predominantly female, with 19 men per 100 women, but this was changing too. And this is when the word stewardess kind of fell out of favor and was replaced by flight attendant because it's gender neutral. So once men got in there, that's when they started changing the name. Or I should say men got in there after we took it over from them. So like we said, the deregulation of the airline industry led to much lower prices and more frequent flights, meaning that flying became less of a luxury and more of a popular way to travel. And then it also offered airlines another way to compete with each other. So then, sorry, I'm like so tongue twisted today. I feel like I say it every week lately. But anyway, now that they're deregulated, they can adjust their pricing and do different marketing things. Before that way it was just like, we have the hottest flight attendants, so that's why the uniforms ate so fucking hard in the 60s and 70s, because they wanted to show how hot their flight attendants were. But now it's the 1980s, and that's not really a priority, so the uniforms became more like functional and just like not meant to really draw attention anymore. So that's why the uniforms aren't really eating as hard. So this is the Qantas Airlines in the 1980s. You can see it really does not eat nearly as hard as before. Air France had flight attendants wearing pastels, and the bow was optional. Thank God the bow was optional, but honestly, I don't know if it's worse with or without. How did that get in here? That's wrong. Here is, I believe, on Delta, this woman, you can see, very much like a suit, very just like basic professional. I don't know what airline that is, but that food looks good. Look how good the food used to be. And again, that looks older too. I don't know how these pictures keep getting messed up. But again, you can see the very like 80s-esque suit, a new image for the new Pan Am. And then here is their uniforms. You can see now they have men there as well. Did they have to pay for their uniforms? I don't think so, because a couple of the like things that I read of flight attendants were saying like when you got hired, they tailored your uniform for you. So I think it was like a status thing to have your new little uniform. So this is Confessions of a 1980s Flight Attendant. This is Anne Hood. She was a flight attendant and has a novel. She was a TWA flight attendant. As a child growing up in Virginia, she witnessed the first flight of a Boeing 707 and watched Dulles Airport being built. And at the age of 11, she went to Rhode Island and read a book titled How to Become an Airline Stewardess, and that is how she decided to become a flight attendant. Although it was sexist as hell, it enticed me because it talked about having a job that allowed you to see the world, and I thought, well, that might work. So that's what I mean when I say, like, this is an extremely sexist industry, but especially in like the 30s to 80s, it was liberating for a lot of women because they got to make money and they got to travel, and that was like unheard of in other circumstances. So like, is it terrible? Yes, but also so was everything else. So, God, I don't have any water today. So, I think 1978 was a really interesting year because many of the women I went to college with had one foot in old ideas and stereotypes and the other in the future. It was kind of a confusing time for young women. I could see that. As a woman in college in the 70s, like, you're surrounded by the women's liberation movement, but you were raised by women of the 1950s. So you're like, what the fuck is going on? And she said flight attendant was a newly minted term upgrade from hostess or stewardess. She said it was still pretty glamorous and flight attendants were still beautiful and sexy ornaments, although they were basically fighting for women's rights against discrimination. The stereotype of stewardess flirting with male passengers still endured and popularized by books Coffee, Tea, or Me, published as factual in 1967, but later revealed to have been written by an American Airlines PR executive. So this book, Coffee, Tea, or Me, is supposed to be the memoir of two airline stewardesses where they're like, I love the customers. The customers are so sexy and hot. When I smile for them, I really do mean it because the customers are amazing. And it was a guy named Donald in PR. Y'all were fantasizing over Donald. Donald. Embarrassing. So, like we already talked about, a lot of those requirements had been lifted. And the shocking one is that women still had to maintain the weight at the time of them being hired. She said, all airlines sent a chart with your application. You looked at your height and maximum weight. If you did not fall within that, they wouldn't even interview you. But once you got hired, at least at TWA, you could not go up to that maximum weight. You had to stay at your hiring weight. In my case, was about 15 pounds less than my maximum limit. My roommate got fired over this. The really terrible thing about it is that that's what they did to women. This wasn't until the restriction was removed until the 1990s. Like we talked about, the wait took a little bit longer. She was hired out of 14,000 flight attendants. Only 560 got hired. And she said she saw a bizarre number of things on board. She said the weirdest would definitely have been the woman in first class who appeared to be breastfeeding her cat. I mean, I can't say that's what was happening, but she had her cat to her breast. And then the guy who flew the whole way in his tighty whities and his dress shirt and ties because he didn't want to wrinkle his pants for a job interview. Or the guy on the 747 in Frankfurt who was riding his bicycle down the aisles. She said the job was 80% fun and 20% boring. She said in some flights, especially those that weren't very full, there was a lot of time to fill. You can only serve people so much food and so many drinks and play so many movies. I made the job fun. I love talking to people. I loved the feel of it. I still love flying today. This is the part that was really sums it up well to me. She said, it was such an empowering job, yet it's a sexist job. In itself, the contradictory today at the time is as the time in which I started, which I think is very emblematic. She said, I was 21 when I was hired, and it gave me confidence, it gave me poise and the ability to think on my feet, to take charge on that airplane, and once I got off, to walk into a city and feel completely at home, or at least figure out how to feel at home in it. I don't know if it should be someone's life work if they want to be great, but I think a few years working as a flight attendant could change your life. That's what I think. I think it's a very formative experience. It's like a very intense job. How big are these planes? The bike, right? So, moving on to the 1990s. This is when we start to get in-flight entertainment as a big thing, and this is when they banned smoking, and then they still had the free meals. They also started putting phones on planes, and at this point, it's still just a high school degree. That's pretty much what it is now, and President George H.W. Bush designated July 19th as Flight Attendant Safety Professionals Day. Guess he was going after that voting block. He said, I urge the people of the United States to observe that day in which appropriate ceremonies and activities designed to recognize the important role of flight attendants play in enhancing the safety and convenience of our nation's air transportation system. Literally what? Controversial take. There's too many days. We need to stop celebrating so many things. And then here is some uniforms as well. They're very similar to the 80s ones, which is why I didn't put that many pictures in here. They're really just very corporate-y and professional, and just nothing will live up to the 60s and 70s of fashion and flying. Nothing will. But y'all look cute, I guess. So, this is one of the first black flight attendants had a tell-all. There's more to this, but I just picked some parts that were interesting to me. This woman spent 35 years as a flight attendant for Delta Airlines. She was 66 when she wrote this, which was a couple of years ago. And she said that all the little girls dreamt of being stewardesses because it was so glamorous at the time. She said a lesser known reality is the many times that she and other flight attendants of color were forced to hold their head up high as they faced racial prejudice and discrimination both on the ground and in flight. She's been retired since 2005 and lives in Chicago, and she has a book called Stars in the Sky, which is on Amazon, not sponsored, obviously, but just thought she was really interesting. And it is the history of African-American flight attendants and other African-Americans in the aviation industry. Most people know the stories of TWA and Pan Am, but they do not know much about the history of Black flight attendants. It is full of her stories and their stories. She said many stories her parents didn't even know about, and Delta didn't even know some of what she experienced. She said the best part was that Black flight attendants stuck together. We vented to each other, shared information, and helped each other. She began her career in 1971. And she said that she experienced that racism well into the 80s. For example, she would tell a story of a pilot that would say, no racial slur, no racial slur, no gays in the cockpit. In literally the 1980s. She said that was a problem because it was part of our job to serve the pilots and make sure they had food and water and such. Once he said it, he might as well have said it to the rest of us too. We alerted the others should they have to fly with him. The white flight attendants would have to serve him because he made it clear that we were forbidden to step foot in the cockpit. That is insane. That is literally insane. More specifically, I wonder how and when the no-fly list started. Wait, what's on Hulu? My dad was a flight attendant in the 80s and 90s and has some stories. People have always been on planes. God. No, it really is rough. I have more to say about her, though. This is her. We already saw the picture of her, but I wanted you to see her. So, Stars in the Sky, her name is Casey Grant. This is a picture of her in the cockpit in the 1980s. Oh, the show about Pan Am. Thank you. So, she said, let me say this. Most of the flight attendants we worked with were very nice, and Delta was always very supportive of us. But many times it was a different story with passengers. Sometimes we would walk up to them and ask if they wanted a drink, and they wouldn't even look at us. They would actually turn their head the other way. How racist do you have to be to refuse service on a flight you paid for? I don't want to drink. Who are you hurting right now? You don't have a drink and you're mad. That's what's happening. So, she said, we knew what it meant, so we would just move on. Then a white flight attendant would walk up to that same passenger and they would say that they did not want Black flight attendants to serve them. If you roomed with a white flight attendant, she would always take her shower first. And if she didn't take one first, she just wouldn't shower at all because, like, the white flight attendants didn't want to use the shower after a Black woman used the shower because they were racist little assholes. In the book, she tells the story of Patty Grace Murphy, the first Black flight attendant hired by Delta. One time a passenger, a white man, asked her, didn't she know her place? She didn't understand what he meant until she saw how red-faced and embarrassed his wife was, and she said, yes, my place is right here, period. And Delta honored Eugene Harmond. He was a trailblazer as the first Black male flight attendant for Delta, and she shared some of his stories too. For example, Delta has a policy that everyone has a prepaid room at their layover hotel. Like if you are laying over in a different city as a flight attendant, Delta pays for your room. They pay for it in advance. You just go to the hotel and it's supposed to be ready to go for you. That's the Delta policy. One time in New York, the crew was checking in and it was his turn to sign in and the clerk said there weren't any more rooms. So he rode around in a cab for a few hours trying to find a place to stay, but every single hotel was turning him away. So he returned to the original hotel, and by that time it was time for morning pickup, so he never actually went to sleep that night because he was just like going around looking for hotel rooms. Because usually when flight attendants do layovers, it's for like 7-8 hours. It's not like 14. No matter, wait, where was I? It turns out Delta had paid for a room and one was available, but the desk clerk just refused to give it to him. And she said, no matter the situation, we always handled it with professionalism. No one was going to deny us the job, so we dealt with it. So I really thought that this story was interesting, so I wanted to put the link in the chat in case anyone wanted to read the rest of it. She does go through some more stories, but yeah. Oh, we're going to talk about current flight attendant pay. Trust. So, current flight attendant status literally was on the next slide. The workforce of flight attendants was 109,000 people in 2021. It is 75% women, so still very predominantly women. The average age of male flight attendants is 44, and the average age of female flight attendants is 46. The most common ethnicity is white. It is still a pretty white-dominated field, it appears. The salary range is around like 70 to 100,000, but obviously it depends on how much you work. And this is what I find really horrifying and interesting. Flight attendants are not paid for boarding to help airlines save money and lower ticket cost. Interesting. Traditionally, most airlines have conducted business this way. Cabin crews get paid for their time once the door closes. Before the door closes, technically, they are not working. Delta recently changed this, and they started paying flight attendants for that boarding. Delta historically has treated their employees much better. I've had a couple friends who work for Delta, and everyone I know who works for Delta always really likes it. So they are not paid for that 30 to 50 minutes when passengers are boarding, which in my opinion seems like the worst fucking time. And they're literally just not getting paid. Very odd. Very, 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 very odd. And people have also been going insane. So this is the rate of workplace injuries and illnesses for flight attendants compared to all other regular workers. Flight attendants are in blue. Flight attendants are getting injured at work like crazy, because violence on airlines has shot up. I'm sure they're getting injured in other ways too, but violence on airlines went up dramatically during the pandemic and has just kind of continued to pop off. It peaked in March 2021 because shortly, I think it was in January 2021, the FAA released a zero tolerance policy. So like if you act up on the airplane, you will get put on the motherfucking no-fly list. And clearly that kind of started to help. But the violence again not violence, but unruly airline passengers peaked in March 2021. So that's kind of their current woe, is the customers. So they're facing less sexism from the airlines, but they're facing violence from the customers. So I don't really know if that is a win. Is it March 21, around the same times that Spirit Airlines incident? I'm going to need you to be more specific, unfortunately. So these were some stories gathered by Cosmo magazine of just like current insane things that have happened on planes recently from flight attendants. I had a passenger that was already pretty drunk when he boarded the plane, maybe 5 or 6 hours into the San Francisco to Sydney flight. The guy comes to the back of the plane. Even though we have a lot of bathrooms on the flight, he starts peeing in the trash bag hanging by the door. We stopped him and brought him back to his seat. That's when we saw he had an open bottle of duty-free alcohol, and we must have realized he was getting more drunk during the flight. The rest of the flight, we were basically force-feeding him water and also trying to get him to go to sleep. As for the bag of pee, we put it in a hazmat bag and locked it in one of the bathrooms for the rest of the flight. So people misbehaving on a cramped flying box that no one is allowed to leave is absolutely bonkers. No respect for all of those folks. So this is my take on it. Obviously, don't fucking act like that. And it's like, don't do that because it's your fault for doing that. But also, when you treat people like criminals or like animals, that's how they act. And the airport is a very overstimulating place where you get yelled at a lot. It's very stressful. There's a lot of time sensitivities, and people have a lot of anxiety, and people are also having financial anxiety. I'm not saying that makes it okay. I'm just saying it's like, and I think COVID, then people also had health anxiety. And I think that all those different anxieties are just like the perfect storm of people acting insane. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm just saying I understand how we got here. So I was working on a flight to London in business class, and there are these pods with pillows and blankets. A lady wandered up, and I knew something was off. She didn't look right, and then she crawls into bed with a man in one of the pods, and he looks at me like, what is going on? I asked if he knew her, and he said no. I tell her that she needs to get back to her seat, and she tells me that this is her seat. I ask her again if she can return to her seat, and she said, I do what I want. I think she was on Ambien because these kinds of situations tend to happen when people take drugs like that. God. I feel bad for flight attendants having to deal with people in an Ambien fog. There was a woman who got angry with me because we didn't serve her drinks fast enough. After she had her drink, she threw the empty cup at me, which hit me on the nose. She then broke down and said she didn't understand why I had been so mean to her because I didn't serve her drink fast enough. She said something along the lines of, you have no idea who I am. So my partner and I were like, who are you? And she goes, I'm a dancer. I bet it was Abby Lee Miller. A guy ran to the back of the plane and yelled, "Where are we?" He was clearly drunk. I tell him we're on the airplane and that we just left Dallas. He then tells me he got on the wrong flight. I told him that he's been through security and his boarding pass has been checked multiple times. He's not on the wrong flight. But he was convinced that he was, and he didn't remember going through security or getting on the plane. Turns out he had mixed alcohol with Ambien. It seems like alcohol and Ambien are to blame for a lot of these issues. I saw a couple go into the bathroom together, and at some point the girlfriend came back to her seat and was freaking out and crying. I asked her if she was okay, and she said her boyfriend was still in the bathroom, but nothing she said was making sense. We got her boyfriend back to their seat, but a little bit later they were back there again, and we could hear them having sex. Then a line started to form, so we needed to get them out of there. When they opened the door, we asked them if they had taken anything. Turns out they were both on ecstasy. That'll do it. That will do it. I like how she was like, they were having sex, but then when there was a line, I really had to fucking do something because we can't have a line. That's ridiculous. I was doing a safety demonstration and thought I heard something buzzing. I thought it was a vibrator at first, but I went to the source of the sound, and it was a sweet little old man who was electric razoring his face. He had his tray table down, and we were preparing for takeoff, so I told him to put his tray table up, and he did, and kept shaving. This one really got me. A grown man dressed as an elf walked onto the aircraft, showed us his boarding pass like everything was normal. He was a tall man, probably in his 60s or 80s. He was pretty drunk. He wasn't being offensive to anyone. We just weren't going to serve him any more alcohol. We couldn't ask him to leave the plane because he wasn't doing anything wrong, and other passengers were just kind of looking at us for reactions. I could barely look at him without laughing. He was just sitting there in the end seat dressed as an elf while everyone was dressed normally. It wasn't even close to Christmas. I think it was October. This is another good one. I was written up by a first-class passenger because she asked for barbecue ribs without the barbecue during a meal service, and that isn't something we can do. We don't make the food on the plane. We just put it in the oven and make it look pretty. I tried to explain to her that the food was pre-made and I couldn't serve her barbecue ribs without the barbecue, but she was just really upset. She asked for my name and reported me to my supervisor. My supervisor said she understood, and that was that. Oh my God. There was one passenger who took off his shoes and his feet smelled awful. It was so bad I wanted to throw up. The person who complained about his feet was actually 2 rows behind him. That's how bad the smell was. And then he put his feet up against the wall. At one point, he started clipping his toenails, and that's when I asked him if he could do that in the bathroom because it was unsanitary for him to be doing that while we're delivering meals and drinks. He then walked barefoot to the restroom and continued to clip his toenails. Absolutely insane. Insane, insane, insane. Here were the sources that I used on this lovely evening. I have no idea what we are going to learn about next week, but this was a wild ride. I enjoyed this. Let's play our freaking little trivia game. Right? I felt like that was a good ending. Which game do we want to play? Did they release the Valentine's Day one yet? No. Lame. Space, because we're flying? We ended on toenails? We ended on toenails. We ended on toenails. What game do you want to play? What are we playing? Let me go ahead and send the link in the chat while we pick. Someone said space. We'll go space. Alrighty, so the way this works, it is a 10-question trivia game about what we learned about this fine evening. You can join from your phone. You can join in a new tab if you're on a computer. There's lots of different ways to join this. All you have to do is either click the link I just put in the chat, or I'll put the directions on the screen. Join.nearpod.com. You don't have to make an account. You don't have to enter your email address. I don't want anything like that. All you do is go to join.nearpod.com and put in our code, which is CYRSQ. Put in your name. If you don't want your name to come up, put in something funny. Don't put in anything offensive, because that's lame. I'll give people a couple seconds to join. It lets you pick these little characters. It'll let you scroll through. You have the little space hats on today. I want to play a game where none of us ever become a flight attendant story. I wonder if any of us are flight attendant stories. Probably. And I haven't decided what we're learning about next week. Not a clue yet. Not a clue. I'll give people some more time to join. I'm writing essays with my AP kids right now, and it's like actually taking the life out of both of us, and I need to talk to them tomorrow because they think that I'm mad at them, but I'm not mad at them. I'm just stressed out and was kind of taking it out on them. Not really, but they could sense it. I don't know how many people would be down for creating a book club together. I don't know how to read. So sorry, but I unfortunately don't know how to read. So if you all want to do that, go for it. But unfortunately, I can't participate in that. Actually, that's a lie. I do know how to read. I am totally a story. SNL stream, maybe. I do know how to read, but because I have to read so much for work and then I read to make the stream slides, I never read ever. I really just don't. This was a 10/10 streaming topic. Thank you. I liked it too. Also, if you want to find a way to say thank you to me, my views on Twitch have been very low recently, which I don't love that for me. So if you like my stream, post about it, tell a friend about it. I would love to get more people here. I really do like doing these. It's a very, very fun, and I enjoy being on here with y'all. And it makes me sad that I've been kind of in my flop era because I think it's a fun time and that people would appreciate it. Have we talked about the history of soap operas yet? We haven't, but I don't really know anything about soap operas. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and hit start on the game. I never see you on my FYP anymore. Ironically, my views on TikTok have been doing fine in the last couple days. It's really just Twitch. But that's also, it's mainly my fault because when I was in corporate America, I would post so many promo videos for my stream, and now I just don't have time to do that. So it's like my fault, you know? Not my fault in like a her fault, like I did anything bad way. It's just like I have not been promoting it as much, so obviously not as many people are going to come. But anyway, let's go ahead and start our little game. My most streamed subjects, Sister Wives and the Duggars. Always do numbers, on YouTube especially. Who was the first flight attendant? Oh, I'm sore. Can't believe it's already Wednesday. Hot pants for feminist. I'm having a feminist revolution and we're wearing hot pants. I'm stretching my leg right now and it kind of hurts, but it kind of feels good. Heinrich Cubis, who lived through the Hindenburg. Big Kathy was so good. I loved Big Kathy. That was a great stream. That was like my favorite to make. Was so interesting to me. If people weren't tuning in for that, they're the problem. But that's what I mean. I barely promoted the Big Kathy because this was the problem. So let me tell y'all. When I worked in corporate America, I would work on my stream slides at my desk. So if I saw something and I would work on them like 30 minutes here, 30 minutes later, 30, like just throughout the week. So if I saw something interesting, I would go in the closet and make a TikTok about it. Now, obviously I can't work on this while I'm teaching. That's so unrealistic. So I do this on Sundays and I'm just like trying to get it done on Sunday. So I never make TikToks while I'm working on it because I'm like just really focused on doing it all in one sitting, as opposed to in corporate America where I was like, work a little bit, film a TikTok, do a meeting, answer emails, and like I was not actually doing that much work at my job. But now that I have to work at work, it's hard to promote a live stream. What was the original weight limit? The Kim stream preview was iconic. The Kim Zolciak stream was probably another favorite of mine. That was a really good one. If you guys have any ideas of like, I really like doing the celebrity lore, like Kim Zolciak, the Richards family, Big Kathy, like any ideas like that, let me hear them. Let me hear all those ideas. This is a hard question. Has work been more enjoyable back in teaching? Yes. So I will say, like, I would leave my old job and just come home and be like, oh my God, I did nothing today. And now, like, I feel very accomplished when I'm home and, like, I'm not counting down the minutes for work to be over. If anything, I'm like, how much can I get done? We only have an hour. Like, I'm counting the minutes in the opposite way. Like, I wish I had more time. So, like, it's kind of a tough trade-off because I feel like the better my career is, the worse I do on here, but I'm there all day, every day. So See, all these like Michael Jackson, Madonna, I want like someone that embarrassed themselves on MTV. You know? Someone like that. But yeah, my job is way more enjoyable. I'm getting a lot of fulfillment out of it. Like I feel good at the end of every day, but it's very tiring. I feel like it's very extroverted and my old job was a little more introverted. Who had the, I shouldn't say that word. You know what I'm trying to say. Jenny McCarthy, interesting one. I also loved the Ellen stream. Everything that people hated about her. Politicians, interesting. I was thinking about Arnold Schwarzenegger. He has a very interesting story. My boyfriend was watching a documentary about him and I was like, Judge Judy, that's a good choice. It was Southwest. Southwest had the cute uniforms. I'm so intimidated to do a Wendy Williams stream. I don't even know where to start. What was the Southwest motto in the 1970s? Y'all are crushing this question. I like the streams that end up about one thing, but then reveal a whole other issue, right? I like those too, but I can never predict those because I always discover it while I'm learning. Dr. Phil. That might be a good one. Dr. Phil might be what we need to do. Y'all could not act right enough for Helen Keller. We cannot do Helen Keller. Do we know enough about mob wives? I don't think they're very public people. We should do a learn together stream where you research. I was thinking about that, but the problem is like, I'll literally have 9 million tabs open and I like make accounts on random websites. So I have to like enter my like email and phone number and shit. So I just don't think it's that realistic, you know? What did United Airlines test out in the 1980s? Amazing answer choices, thank you. Reba. Oh no, Mob Wives the reality show on VH1 in 2010. Oh, I thought you all meant like real Mob Wives. I would act up on a Helen Keller stream. I have not done Trisha Paytas. That's another good one. So is Lisa Rinna. I'm obsessed with Lisa Rinna. What if I do like Erica Jane from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? Would y'all be into that? Do you know her? And like how her husband like got in trouble for like doing fraud and all that? Currently, what % of flight attendants are women? I do not know her. She's an interesting person. Don't know her? I didn't think many of you would. One more question. Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen. Maybe I'll do them. That's a good one. They were treated very poorly. Do a Fraz stream. Stop. Last question. When did airline violence peak? Okay, my computer auto-corrected peak to a different version of that, but I meant it without the E at the end. The Secret Life of Miss Frazzle. Do you guys remember that show, The Secret Life of the American Teenager? That was weird. Amelia Earhart with conspiracies. I do like that. All right, right now my top choices are Olsen's or Amelia Earhart. So follow me on Instagram. That's usually the first place I post about what stream is gonna be. I still think about the lip bite. Lindsay Lohan, she's on my list too. Alrighty. We have an airport parking lot in first place, Southwest Hot Pants, Caitlin Koss, Southwest Hot Pants again, a Fred Meyer parking lot, getting to the airport 15 minutes before takeoff, a Mile High Cigarette parking lot, Cabin Boy, Megan Airlines, I'm Cheryl, Fly Me, Duty Free parking lot, Kim, Ellen Church, respectfully. What is this, a cabaret? A blimp parking lot, Hot Pants for Feminist, a Dutch Bros parking lot, Lou, Southwest parking lot. I will scroll through the rest. Nice job, nice job. Alrighty. Thank you so much for being here. Any memes, any thoughts, anything to add? Did we like this topic? I was kind of feeling it. I was also thinking about history of casinos as a potential topic coming up. But yeah. Thank you. I went with the Valentine's Day background. I'll allow people to add their memes, add their little jokey jokes, anything people want to add. I'll take it. Demi Lovato. That might need to be one. Yep. Let me write these down before I forget. Oh no, what is this? 100 Cubist officers surviving jumping from the fucking Hindenburg explosion. The class won the lesson, jumped from Batty Ellen Church to the physical requirements for the first gen of female flight attendants. Not Hooters Air. Not Hooters Air. Winning on the quiz, something that's both achievable and normal to want. Vintage. Oh my God. Only $300? That's a great deal. If anyone can find the Southwest shorts, I'd be willing to pay up to $500. It can get here by Saturday. That's pretty quick. Interesting. I'm a big fan of the memes. Big fan of the memes. What was I writing down? Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato. Where's my note? Demi Lovato. Lovato, stop autocorrecting. Olsen twins. Dr. Phil. What were the other ideas? Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart in costume. Stop. The stream was extremely fun, Mr. Redacted. Great job. Thank you. I do what I can. I thought y'all would like this. I want to be this for Halloween. Ellen Church is really the inspo of the night. And then she saved us in World War II. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I'm here every single week at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Follow me on all the things, Twitter, X, whatever you call it. TikTok, Instagram, whatever. Love you so much. And I will see you here next week. Night, night. Love you.